Laughter rolled across the marble floors. But Vespera didn't hear any of it. To her, the world was silent. Instead, she watched. And that was how she saw something no one else noticed. 3 men stood in the shadowed alcove near the west balcony. They didn't drink. They didn't laugh. They didn't mingle. They only watched one man. Vespera focused on the leader's lips. He checked his watch. Then he spoke. The words formed slowly and clearly. Vane's time is up. Her blood turned cold. Because Marcus Vane wasn't just another guest at the gala. He was the most dangerous man in Boston. And someone had just ordered his death. Vespera had 2 choices. She could step back into the shadows of the service hallway and pretend she had seen nothing. Or she could warn him and sign her own death warrant. She chose the second option. Vespera had spent most of her life being invisible. At 23, she worked as a waitress at the Gilded Cage, Boston's most exclusive event venue. The building itself looked like a palace. Crystal chandeliers hung from ceilings painted with gold leaf. Marble pillars lined the grand ballroom. Every event held there was attended by the city's elite. To the wealthy guests, the servers were nothing more than background decorations. People who refilled glasses. People who cleared plates. People who existed but were never really seen. For Vespera, that invisibility was useful. 3 years earlier, a car accident had taken most of her hearing. Doctors told her she was lucky to be alive. But survival came with a price. The world she returned to was quiet. Not peaceful quiet. A distant, muffled quiet. Like living underwater. At first, the silence terrified her. But slowly, she adapted. She learned to watch people more closely than she ever had before. She learned to read lips. At first it was difficult. Then it became second nature. Soon she realized something powerful. People revealed their secrets constantly. They whispered. They gossiped. They plotted. And they never imagined that the quiet waitress walking past them could understand every word. Over time, Vespera became an expert at seeing what others missed. And tonight, that ability might save a life. Or end her own. Marcus Vane stood near the balcony doors. Even without hearing the conversations around him, Vespera knew who he was. Everyone in Boston knew. Marcus Vane was a legend in the city's underworld. Some people called him a businessman. Others called him a ghost. But in criminal circles, his name carried a very different meaning. Fear. Stories about him spread quietly through the city. A gang leader who tried to cheat him had vanished overnight. A corrupt developer who crossed him suddenly fled the country. A smuggler who betrayed him was never seen again. No one could prove Marcus Vane had done any of those things. But everyone believed he had. Tonight he stood among senators and investors, calm and composed in a perfectly tailored black suit. He looked more like a diplomat than a crime lord. Yet even across the room, there was something dangerous about him. Something controlled. Something watchful. Vespera glanced back toward the alcove. The assassins were moving. The leader adjusted his jacket. Another man scanned the crowd. The third shifted closer to the balcony entrance. Vespera focused on their lips again. 30 seconds. Her pulse jumped. If she did nothing, Marcus Vane would be dead before the champagne glasses were cleared. She took a slow breath. Then she picked up a tray of drinks. And walked directly toward him. Marcus Vane noticed her immediately. Not because she was loud. But because she moved with urgency. Most servers approached guests with polite smiles and rehearsed calm. Vespera walked toward him like someone racing against time. His dark eyes followed her as she crossed the ballroom. When she reached him, she placed the tray down on a nearby table. Then she grabbed his sleeve. That alone was enough to shock him. Servers did not touch guests. Especially not him. She looked directly into his eyes. Then she raised her hands and signed one word. Run. Marcus stared at her, confused. She quickly pointed toward the alcove. Then she mouthed the words slowly so he could understand. 3 men. Guns. 30 seconds. For a moment, Marcus Vane didn't move. His eyes shifted toward the alcove. He saw the men. And instantly, the calm expression on his face disappeared. He placed his glass down carefully. Then he leaned closer to her. Why are you helping me? She didn't answer. Instead, she pointed again. The assassins were already moving. The first gun appeared. Vespera saw it before anyone else. Her eyes widened. Marcus followed her gaze. Everything happened at once. A bodyguard lunged forward just as the first shot fired. The crack of the gun echoed through the ballroom. Guests screamed. Chairs overturned. Crystal glasses shattered on the marble floor. Panic spread like wildfire. Marcus grabbed Vespera's wrist. Come with me. She froze. Why was he taking her? But there was no time to argue. He pulled her toward a side corridor. Behind them, more gunshots exploded. The assassins were pushing through the crowd. They were determined to finish the job. They ran through a narrow service hallway behind the ballroom. Vespera struggled to keep up in her heels. Marcus glanced down. Take them off. She kicked them away without slowing down. The cold marble floor stung her bare feet as she ran. Behind them, security alarms flashed red lights along the corridor. At the end of the hallway, a heavy door burst open. 2 armed men rushed inside. Marcus's bodyguards. Boss. Marcus pointed back down the hall. Assassins. The guards immediately raised their weapons. One pulled Marcus behind him. The other blocked the corridor. Then gunfire erupted again. The assassins had followed them. Bullets struck the walls. Vespera pressed herself against the wall, heart racing. Marcus grabbed her arm again. This way. He pulled her through a side door into the kitchen. Chefs ducked as the pair rushed past. Pots clattered. Steam filled the air. Within seconds they burst through the back exit. Cold night air slammed into them. They ran into the dark alley behind the building. For the first time since the shooting began, Marcus stopped. Vespera leaned against the brick wall, breathing hard. Marcus studied her carefully. You're deaf. She nodded. And you red lips. Another nod. He looked genuinely impressed. You saw something no one else did. She hesitated. Then she signed slowly. You would have died. Marcus watched her hands thoughtfully. Then he smiled faintly. I don't like owing people. Headlights appeared at the end of the alley. Black SUVs rolled toward them. Marcus's security team had arrived. The doors opened. Armed guards stepped out quickly. But Marcus didn't move. Instead, he looked back toward the gala building. His expression darkened. Someone hired those assassins. One of the guards nodded. Marcus continued. And someone inside that party knew they were coming. That meant one thing. Betrayal. Someone close to him had sold him out. Marcus turned back to Vespera. You saw their faces. She nodded. And they saw yours. Her stomach dropped. She hadn't thought about that. If the assassins escaped, they would come looking for her. Marcus opened the SUV door. Get in. She hesitated. Why would a man like him help her? Marcus answered before she could ask. Because the people who tried to kill me tonight will want to clean up loose ends. He paused. You're a loose end. Then he added quietly. And I'm not leaving without you. The SUV sped through the streets of Boston. Inside the vehicle, silence settled over the group. Marcus finally looked at Vespera again. What's your name? She signed slowly. Vespera. He repeated it quietly. Vespera. He asked about her accident. About how she learned lip reading. About her job at the gala venue. No one had asked her that many questions in years. Most people simply treated her like she was broken. Marcus treated her like she was valuable. Finally, he leaned back in his seat. You know something? She looked at him. You might be the most dangerous person in that ballroom tonight. She frowned. He explained. Because you notice things. Across the city, the surviving assassins were already making a call. Their employer answered immediately. The leader spoke quickly. The hit failed. There was a long pause. Then the voice on the phone asked one question. Did anyone see you? The assassin hesitated. A waitress. Another pause. Find her. The SUV stopped in front of a towering glass skyscraper overlooking the harbor. Marcus stepped out first. Then he turned and offered Vespera his hand. She stared at it for a moment. This morning she had been an invisible waitress. Now she stood beside the most feared man in Boston. She took his hand. He led her inside the building. The elevator doors closed behind them. As the elevator climbed toward the penthouse, Marcus spoke again. You changed my fate tonight. She signed a question. What happens now? Marcus looked out through the glass wall of the elevator at the city lights stretching across the harbor. His eyes hardened. Now we find out who tried to kill me. He paused. Then he added quietly. And when we do, they're going to wish they hadn't failed. The elevator doors opened. Vespera stepped into a world she had never imagined entering. Behind her, the doors closed softly. And somewhere in the darkness of Boston, someone was already hunting her. The quiet waitress was no longer invisible. Now she was part of a war. And there was no turning back.